It was actually a back day. That was my warm-up, part of my warm-up anyways. And I'm going to start with that infamous seal row. You either love them or you hate them. But these were my warm-up weights as I acclimated to my top set. And basically I just hit a bunch of 5s and then I get into my volume work. And this first movement, I believe it was sets of 8. What I do know is that I ended up falling 1 rep short of actually graduating to my next weight or my next rep range. Yeah, this is typically how I start my, I guess you could say, my back days. And I do have a day once a week that I dedicate to nothing but pretty much rowing. And I do rowing on other days, but this day is pretty much a back day. So a bro that's in the gym, from afar it looks like I'm having a back and bicep day pretty much. And actually I just made a little adjustment to my training routine. It's a little outdated even though this video was shot about 2 weeks ago. I'm actually going to use the dumbbell seal row as a secondary movement, and then the barbell seal row as my primary movement, simply because these can be a bit impractical to set up with, especially when it gets to the heavier weights. So I didn't record how I set up with them, but basically you have to pick up one dumbbell, scoot over and grab the other dumbbell, and that was kind of yeah, it was starting to get a bit outdated. Anyhow, I love this movement, and again I've mentioned before, because it helps me keep my torso fresh. Also, it helps me with that head that just wants to throw itself forward when I row. And you're going to be able to really see it from this next view, the top view. And again, what that does, it gives you a phony contraction, for the lack of a better term. So you're really not rowing the weight. You're moving your head forward, and in your mind, you're finishing off the row when you're actually not. You're cheating, for the lack of a better term. So seal rows, you guys have seen this plenty of times, but I don't believe you guys have seen me do it with a barbell, at least not on this YouTube channel, and that's coming up in a second here. But yeah, I'm going to switch these over. These are going to be my second row of this day, and I'm going to start off most of my days now with all my days now with the barbell row, because it's just way more practical once you start getting into heavier weights, I feel. 1 rep short. I will remember that until next Tuesday, next Wednesday. No, next Tuesday. I will remember that nevertheless. That's pissed, man. Barbell seal row, and as you can see, it's way more practical. It's similar to using a barbell for a bench press as a power movement. You have all the time in the world to set up, get nice and comfy, so that you can lift in the lower rep ranges. So I think, yeah, at this point, even though I'm usually only going 8 to 10 reps with the dumbbells, rolling over and grabbing 190 or 195 pound dumbbell, then reaching over to get the other one was just not a very efficient way of doing things. And this manner, doing it with a barbell is just way more practical. And not only that, I feel that it's going to actually, it's going to be a great accessory movement when it comes to helping me bring my bench press up during this prep, which, believe it or not, even though I've been dieting, I feel that, to tell you the truth, my bench press is probably better now than it was, say, 2-3 months ago, and partly due to the wonderful programming of Ben Escrow, but I think also in part to this movement, the seal row. So yeah, I tried out this movement, and my back workout after this, I started off my seal rows with the barbell rather than with the dumbbells. And as you can see, I'm using the squat pad. I finally found a good use for that squat pad. And basically, what I have found is that it's a very noisy exercise. So the squat pad kind of helps muffle that, and it keeps. I get enough looks from the other gym goers when I do this, and it keeps CJ, who's a wonderful gym owner here at the gym is the name of the gym I go to, the gym in Sacramento, California. Wonderful dude, very supportive, and so it helps me return the favor by not damaging his equipment. So that's a good way to make sure you don't dent the benches, is just grab that squat pad and find a useful, make some use out of it. But yeah, this is basically going to be, I guess you could say, my new main rowing movement, and I will still use dumbbells, but in the higher rep ranges. So seal rows, I cannot wait to apply these once the growth season is upon us, because I really do think they will make a huge difference in my back development. Not that I'm not that I'm disappointed with how well this off season went in regards to me bringing up my back in general, but I really think these are going to be a useful tool for a very, very long time.
Control it, brother. Control it.
And then after the seal rows, we got into some motor rows, and it just seems like, man, everything Alberto does, he just overly complicates. It's always some kind of exotic rowing variation, but this one's been a rowing variation that I've been using, I think, since as far back as 2007, and I think I have my friend Adam Ripa to thank for this one, oldbodybuilding.com forum member, but also really good friend Adam Ripa, and I love this movement because it saves my shoulders. I think sometimes the overhead pulling, the vertical pulling, it can wreak a little bit of havoc in my shoulders. And if there is one joint that over the years has been kind of a nuisance, it's my shoulders. So one thing I will say is that you have to remember that you're, especially as a bodybuilder, someone who's looking to stimulate muscle fibers, get jacked, and they aren't necessarily trapped or forced to progress in specific movements. When picking out your movements, specifically your assistance movements like this, I would say that you have to recall that your body understands movements and not exercises. So don't feel like you have to do a specific movement because everyone else does. And thinking back to old days, I think the barbell row is one that I would use because it was a bread and butter movement. You have to do it. When in reality, I wish I would have stumbled upon that very complicated seal row thingy vajiggy movement that I do now, which I would have totally laughed at, back in the day, because the big names in bodybuilding weren't doing it. But again, you might find that everything I do here in terms of my movement selection just doesn't cut it for you, and that's okay. Specifically when we're talking about your goals as a bodybuilder, that's perfectly fine. So yeah, just recall, your body doesn't understand exercises, it understands movements. So pick movements that you feel are safe, that it really just is, it's you and the weight, and you're not fighting the weight plus yourself. That's kind of how I typically pick my movements. I need to feel like I can look at that movement, do that movement, and it's really just going to be about me and the weight, and whether or not it's just too heavy today for me to add a little bit of weight or add a rep or two here, but not because it feels uncomfortable or unhealthy. But yeah, back to the seal row. So basically, the first few movements, I think the first movement off the top of my head is a 5x8, and once I get I complete all sets with 8 reps. I graduate to the next rep range, which is going to be 9, so a 5x9. So 5 by 8 to 10 on the first movement, and then on the second movement it's a 4 by 10 to 12, and then this one right here is a 5 by 8 to 10. And then again, once I can do a certain amount of weight for all 8s, I graduate to the next rep. So once I get all my 8s done with this weight, I go into 9s, and so on and so on. And I'm sure at some point during this contest prep, it's going to be not just about how quickly I can progress and add a rep to a set here and there, but how long I can. It sounds so pessimistic, but how long I can hold on to my strength for. So if this month I only lost 1 rep on my 5x8 or my 5x10 or what have you, then sometimes that's progress in itself, especially as you're shrinking, and we still have some shrinking to do, guys. But this was the last row of the day, and then after the rowing, we got into some pullovers, and I do them with the cable. We have a hammer strength pullover machine, but again, it's a great machine, and I understand why it's a great machine, but not until I can improve my shoulder flexibility a bit more. It's just too risky for the time being. So right now I'm doing this, and it's a partial, you could say, but I'm getting better at it, and I do think that within a few months I'll be able to take advantage of the hammer strength pullover machine, which is a great machine, and it's quite the luxury that we have one of those in my gym. But yeah, this is a 3x15, so this is high rep, feel the burn, brother, kind of an exercise. So definitely not something you want to load too heavy on. But this is what my back day looks like right now. And again, one of my main goals this off season was, let's work on that back, let's work on those arms, and I'd say that it's been moderately successful. I'm pleased with what was done during my last 2-year off season, and again, I think that some folks think that all your discipline as a bodybuilder is honed into a contest prep, when in reality I think it's the other way around. I think the off season is where all the discipline really takes place. That's your investment period. In the contest prep, that's your shopping spree. That's where you get to go spend and play with your investments. So I'm looking forward to my next investment period, just because I think that, hey, every passing off season I'm gaining less, but at the same time I'm also finding more efficient ways to progress, and to some degree able to fight off the fact that I'm getting pretty close up there when it comes to my genetic ceiling. I mean, I can see the cracks in my ceiling from here. It's getting like that. So it's really cool when you crack the code, for the lack of a better term, and make some progress. But yeah, we ended with some arms, and I've discussed this movement before on this channel, but this is probably my go-to guy for biceps training. And we finish off with a 4x10 here, and then with the cables a 3x15, and that is basically my back and bicep day. And this is done once a week. I do row here and there throughout most of the week, but the majority of my volume comes on this day. So typically after I bench or deadlift, I will get a few rows in, nothing too heavy, maybe some 5 sets of 10, typically RP of maybe 8 or 9, but most of, I guess you could say, the overreaching, and there's a big volume spike on this specific day. But yeah, that's how we do things around here, and so far so good, guys. I think that it's one thing to gain, but I think once you've gained, and again, you're carrying a bit more muscle than your body would like, big catch, the small print of the contest prep is not just how much you gain in the off season, but how much of that you can maintain, and that depends on a lot of things. But I think a key component is sound technique, and sound technique practice within a fundamentally sound routine. And I think right now we're doing pretty well when it comes to both of those. So that's it. More of these to come. Thank you very much, guys. Long video. My apologies, but that's how the workouts look like these days.